Yes, guys, welcome to the next video. So obviously we just finished up on the last divergence video previously. So now we've got institutional swing points. So we're referring back to the weekly time frame and of course the larger time frame. And this is where fundamentals really does take a part in your trading. You're gonna realize this when you look back on the charts and look at the massive price swings that you see in price over time. So what are swing points? I look at it in two ways. I see price as whole numbers. These are also called institutional numbers. And then you've got price in terms of timing. So what do I mean by price in terms of whole numbers? In terms of institutions and the way they set for long-term trades, they have targets in mind. For example, by a certain quarter of the year, they will estimate a certain price point for AUD USD. And this, I'm going to be taking this chart as an example because this is something that I took part in throughout the beginning of end of 2020 and then the start of 2021. You know, massive price movements. So institutional swing points, what are they? Usually they're whole numbers. And so this could be, for example, 0.8, 0.7. And by whole numbers as well, I mean even quarter points. So like 0.725, 0.75, 0.775. These massive decimal point numbers in a way, or as I like to call them, whole numbers. Obviously, they're not whole numbers, but they're massive price points that if you see a pool of liquidity near there, so equal highs or anything like that in that nature, you're going to see price gravitate towards that point. Because the thing is, especially when fundamentals are involved as well, institutions will set targets. They will actually release this in their bank sort of weekly reports or monthly reports. They will say, we expect Euro USD to decline to 1.13 in the next 3 months, for example, or AUD USD to 0.8. These are the types of things that you've got to take into consideration in terms of long-term profits, especially when swing trading. Now, how can I use this? So there's 3 ways. Projections for price take profits. That's the first one. I'm going to be looking at this example in more depth, but secondly, potential areas of reversal when you know fundamentals support it too. So if we get to a certain area and you understand that fundamentals are changing at that point, could be interest rates, could be other types of monetary policies, fiscal policies in terms of taxes, anything like that, trade, you trade with other countries, exports, imports, you understand that there might be a reason for price to reverse at that point. And it's very likely that that would happen. I mean, when we get into AU, the AU example at the moment, you're going to see this as clear as day. And then, of course, knowing which point of interest might be more valid than others. So if you've got, let me just highlight this right here. So let's just say, for example, you've got this point of interest, this point of interest, that point of interest. This is 0.8, 0.7675, blah, 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 blah. You would look areas as whole numbers. These massive price moves, this is where price will gravitate towards. But obviously, it's more complicated than just, bringing out whole numbers. You've really got to adapt fundamentals into that. But the main point of this is take profits and understanding areas of reversal. Okay, so let's look at this AD USD example from last year. So that highlighted area, that was the beginning of 2020. We started moving upwards. The reason for that was obviously fundamentals with DXY, but also at the time, it was mainly due to the exports of Australia and also their not vaccination program, the way they were dealing with COVID. Because I think vaccinations hadn't happened towards the end of 2020 yet. But yeah, fundamentals led that AU buy. Now, what happened when it got to that key zone right there? So in the beginning of, throughout the middle of 2020, this is what we saw. We arrived at this breaker block area. So right there. Then that price area was 0.7 on the chart. perfect area. You know, we've seen many interactions with that price previously. So a lot of support going on right there in terms of retail logic. Price just boosted up from that point straight away. Obviously, you can see this order block that we've got going on. Then where did it project to? Projected all the way to the top to this premium area, and the price was 0.8. Now, that's where the weekly order block existed. So when we were getting there, I was in a position for AU buys. I believe it was from somewhere like this point right here. So it was quite a good buy. I had a very, very good risk to reward. Did well on that account. Um, but we got to that zero point 0.8 area. And when I observed the weekly time frame, I realized we are at a very, very important point, because not only is it zero point 0.8 institutional figure, but we've got the weekly order block that existed right there. And honestly, I couldn't I couldn't believe how accurate it was. It just pinged straight off zero point 0.8, like no hesitation. And I took some partials until then. Obviously left just a tiny bit, but most of it was taken off. I think I had about 10% running. But yeah, price just rejected straight off. And listen, I'm never gonna say it's because of that point. It's because of fundamentals. Fundamentals led it, but also that price point was a key area of take profits for the banks. As you know, if they've got buys going, they need to take profits. And what happens when you take profits? For every buyer, there's a seller. So that buy contract turns into the sell contract. Selling starts to happen. And there we go. We got rejections off, and then boom, straight down. So in terms of swing points in reference to timing, seasonality, and the movement of investment around the market has a lot to do with overall price on the higher time frame. Like I said, the fundamentals. Um, this is more of a general saying. You know, people say this in the smart money community, especially on the higher time frame. But usually, every 3 to 6 months, you'll see massive price movements. So here, it was the beginning of the year. We went from 0.7 to 0.8. I was about a 6 month move, I believe it was. Um, and it's when you range in between these weekly order blocks, monthly order blocks even, that's when you start to see a shift of momentum and then opposite direction potentially. However, please do not take this as gospel. Like it's not something that we rely on all the time. Oh, it's been even the range is big, 3 to 6 months. We're not going to say, oh, it's been 6 months now, we've got to see a change. No, you've got to refer to fundamentals, but it's the figures that we look at, the institutional numbers. And so yeah, that's everything from this lesson. Hope you guys understood everything. It's quite simple, especially compared to the other lessons, but it's just something you always need to keep in the back of your head. Anyways, guys, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.